He was once the golden boy of Hollywood, his tough face and cold eyes captivated millions of viewers. But behind that halo was a private life filled with darkness that no one could see. At the height of his fame, Alan Ladd still struggled every day with emotional wounds that never healed. Now, the once splendid house is now a desolate place, frozen in memory after the fateful morning when he passed away at the age of 50. From the wife who once accompanied him like a shadow, the children who carried both the halo and the shadow of their father, to the little-known truth about his net worth. And perhaps, it is the secrets he took to the grave that make Alan Ladd's story never truly close. In early 1964, Alan Ladd returned to Palm Springs, not to film, but to heal. Nagging injuries, especially to his knees, coupled with sleepless nights, forced him away from the studio lights. To find some peace, he relied on a dangerous cocktail, sleeping pills, sedatives, and hard liquor. A fragile thread between consciousness and oblivion. On the morning of January 29th, the butler stopped by the bedroom at 10 o'clock. He found Ladd still lying there, calm as if sleeping. But when he returned in the afternoon, the room was strangely quiet. Alan Ladd was unconscious, and a few hours later, the news spread throughout Hollywood: their golden boy was dead at the age of 50. The medical report concluded that the cause was cerebral edema, the result of a combination of alcohol and various sedatives. No dose was too much, but the mixture was enough to knock out a worn-out body. Not suicide, just a fatal mistake. But for those who knew him, this was the end they had always feared would come. February 1, 1964, Palm Springs was unusually cool. The small chapel where the funeral was held was covered with white flowers. Friends and colleagues, faces who had shared the light and dark of acting with him, quietly passed through the wooden doors, avoiding each other's eyes, as if no one wanted to believe it was true. Edmund O'Brien, a close friend, stood before the portrait, his voice low. He read the lines of the eulogy simply but deeply, as if speaking to someone still sitting somewhere in the pews. No flowery words, just memories of a man of few words but devoted to his friends and family. As the casket closed, Alan Ladd carried his wedding ring and a handwritten letter from his youngest son, David. The boy's trembling words went with his father into the ground, a bond that nothing could break. That afternoon, the desert wind blew again, swirling white petals down the path in front of the church. Hollywood had lost a star. But for those standing around the grave, they knew they had lost much more. Alan Ladd's pain didn't begin in Palm Springs, it began long before. On November 29, 1937, when he was 24, Ladd was living with his mother in a small house. That morning, she asked him for some money. He gave it to her, but she was afraid that she would turn to alcohol, which had been eating away at her for years. Instead, she bought a bottle of ant killer containing arsenic, a common poison at the time. She got back into the car, sat in the back seat, and drank it all. When they found her, she was gone. Her death was ruled a suicide. Not only did Ladd lose his mother, but he had to live with the memory of her leaving right next to him, so close, so suddenly. The wound followed him all his life, overshadowing all his successes. More than 25 years later, on November 2, 1962, he was found unconscious in a pool of blood, the bullet piercing his chest, just inches from his heart. Ladd said he heard a noise, checked his gun and accidentally pulled the trigger when he tripped. The incident was ruled an accident, but his friends knew that some wounds never heal. To the audience, Alan Ladd was Shane's quiet hero. But to himself, he was a man with more than one pain in his heart, and every day was a battle. Perhaps it was those battles that made him a symbol of resilience, so that when the screen closed, the image of a cowboy riding off into the sunset remained in the viewer's memory forever. Do you remember the last time you saw Alan Ladd on screen? Maybe it was a quiet evening, the black and white TV was on Shane, and you watched the man ride off into the sunset, leaving a void without explanation. Alan Ladd came to Hollywood like a strange wind. No need for long dialogue, just a look was enough to make the audience silent. In 1942, the role of the assassin Raven in This Gun for Hire brought him from the shadows of supporting roles to the A-list. And then, in 1953, Shane turned him into an icon of a Western hero who was not noisy, not flamboyant, but exuded strength from principles and loneliness. He was often paired with Veronica Lake, a petite actress with blonde hair covering one eye. On screen, they seemed to understand each other better than words, a chemistry that audiences of the time could not take their eyes off. But that harmony only existed within the frame. In real life, Ladd remained a quiet man, carrying his own darkness. Years later, in 1995, more than 3 decades after his death, Ladd was honored with a Palm Gold Star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars and a handprint at the Chinese Theater, testaments to a glorious era. It was a fitting place to commemorate, since Palm Springs was not only his retreat in his later years, but also the place where his life ended prematurely and tragically in 1964. Behind the quiet roles and cold eyes, Alan Ladd was a man with a heart for his family. He had 2 marriages. Alan Ladd's first marriage began as a sweet story of youth. In 1936, while still struggling to find a foothold in radio and small film roles, he married his gentle and peaceful high school sweetheart Marjorie Jane Midge Harold. A year later, they welcomed Alan Ladd Jr., their only son. But the spotlight, the pressure of ambition, and different paths in life caused that love to fade. They divorced in July 1941. Just a few months later, on March 15, 1942, Ladd married Sue Carroll, his agent and the powerful woman behind his career. Sue was a silent film star, and with her sharp instincts, she became a solid support, protecting him from the pitfalls of Hollywood. They had 2 children together, Alana Ladd, born in 1943 while Ladd was serving in World War II, and David Ladd, born in 1947. Alana starred alongside her father in Guns of the Timberland and Duel of Champions, while David, as a boy, starred alongside his father in The Proud Rebel, later becoming a film producer. From Alana, David, to granddaughter Jordan Ladd, the name Ladd continues to resonate in the world of cinema through 3 generations. Out of the spotlight, Ladd was a warm father, always protecting his family. Behind his calm on-screen demeanor, he was a sensitive soul, once rumored to have had an affair with June Allison, but he never let his personal life overshadow his responsibilities as a father and husband, the role he cherished most. When Alan Ladd died in 1964, he left behind not only his immortal roles, but also a collection of properties spanning cities and deserts, each with its own story. In Hidden Valley, he owned a 5,000-acre ranch, a vast expanse of nature that reflected his love of privacy and open space. He also owned a hardware store in Palm Springs, a small but personal project, far from the Hollywood lights. In Holmby Hills, he lived in a stately Georgian revival mansion designed by architect Wallace Neff. The house spanned more than 9,000 square feet, with 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, high ceilings, vaulted porches, and perfectly manicured gardens. It was both a hideaway and a place to entertain Hollywood's elite. Evenings here were attended by Walt Disney, Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra. In Los Feliz, he and Sue Carroll owned a Tudor-style home built in 1926. The house was famous for its private bar, the Silent Woman, a warm wood-paneled room with a well-stocked liquor cabinet where his close friends would laugh, chat, and temporarily forget the pressures of the profession. Decades later, in 2008, the house sold for $2.55 million, not only for its architecture and location, but also for its historical value associated with a screen legend. And in Palm Springs, he found peace in a mid-century modern home designed by Donald Wexler. With floor-to-ceiling glass walls, desert light flooded into every room, and views of the San Jacinto Mountains, this was where he took his last breath. The house later became a stop on architectural tours, hailed by design enthusiasts as a mid-century modern masterpiece. Those houses, each with its own character, now either have changed owners or stand still as silent witnesses. They no longer hear the footsteps of Alan Ladd, but still retain the warmth of a time when he was alive, still laughing, and still believing in dreams. Alan Ladd died at the age of 50, but the image of the quiet hero he created remains deeply ingrained in the history of American cinema. From This Gun for Hire to Shane, he left behind a character that was very different from his time, quiet, principled, but rich in humanity. His name is on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, his handprint remains at the Chinese Theater, as a testament to a golden age. That influence continues through 3 generations of contemporary cinema. Although the houses that once belonged to him are now silent, his legacy still resonates every time the screen lights up, and Shane takes viewers back to the image of the knight riding off into the sunset, as if he had never left. Maybe you saw Alan Ladd at a summer drive-in, or on your family's small TV screen on a quiet evening. Wherever it was, it must have left an unforgettable impression on you. If so, please share your story or memory in the comments. Because memories, when told, will live longer than any spotlight. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to continue to accompany the stories of people who have passed through the golden age of Hollywood. Goodbye.